Okay, I said I'd keep you updated about what I've been doing with this controller. I wasted a few days because I was running on my Raspberry Pi and I kept hitting problems with the actual MIDI and the Sysex. And then I went into my garage and tried my Windows box. It just worked, and I was able to find out that I was losing 256 bytes on every Sysex transfer. And I debugged it down to a problem with Linux in general rather than my Raspberry Pi. So what we've done, if we look into one of the panel methods, we've added some code that will debug the Sysex that's come in. Just make this a bit smaller. Come on, mouse, don't let me down. Okay, so we should have somewhere down here. Let's make it even smaller still. I still haven't worked out why the font's so big. I've asked a question on the community page on the GitHub. I don't know whether I'll get an answer or not, but I thought I found it. I found a menu button, but that turns out to be the height of this menu, not the font size, which is a real bummer. So what I found, let's be as brief as I can. What I found is that when I get my block, so here we get block, what I was doing before was using a 4, because that's what I decoded with the system, and actually it's what Munchwell does use as well, this 4 here. But it turns out that's the block size, so that was taking what, 4 times 128 or whatever it is, with 512, which was too much. So I reduced it to 2, and I take more loops, and then I will be changing the way the flow works here because I need to do things slightly differently. So in my handle MIDI Sysex here, I recognize when I've got a packet coming in from the memory block, and then basically I set the thing to do some validation, and then I expand the file blocks one at a time. And I found something quite interesting with the expand file blocks even. I wish I could make this smaller. Maybe I can change it here. Oh, that's a bit stupid. That's on something quite big there, isn't it? Let's put it down to something small. Maybe it's because, yeah, I mean, that's a bit better. I think it was because I was using it on Windows and I made it bigger. My Windows panel is 4K and this one is a 1K 32-inch. Here we are. So basically with the expand, we get a partial memory block, and then we come in, and what I noticed was that we pull in the data 8 by whatever, and I decode it. And sorry, this is where I noticed it's processing this file system table. What I noticed was that they use the 3E, 3C as their delimiters, and basically it's 26 bytes, whether it's one way of looking at it, whether it's a group or a folder. And so basically just take the first 12 to 13 bytes as a name, the next 4 bytes as an ASCII version with a /nil, then the ID, and then the group ID. And it's kind of big endian. I don't know. It's around the wrong way. I'm a Motorola guy rather than an Intel guy, and it's just around the wrong way to my tiny brain. So what I do is I set up a basic list. I nil it out, and then I come in here and I pull in. I don't know why it thinks that's a comment. I pull in 26 bytes at a time. So I keep going around saying I've not finished. If there's more than 26 bytes left, keep coming around, add up the record, and then I get the length in. I pull out the 13 bytes as the name, the next 5 bytes and 13 as a version, the FXID is 2 from byte position 18, and the GID. If it's a 3E, 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 then we increment the 3Es, and if it's 1, then we store the current folder. If it's 2, we store the group. At the end, when we get a 3C, 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 then we decrement and we say, oh, hello, let's check the current record against the one we stored earlier. So in this case, the folder string, in this case, the group string. And as long as the things are the same, we're good. And then we're left with, if we get all noughts, and I only check a few noughts at the moment because that seems to be enough. It's not very robust, but it seems to be enough. If I'm not at a 3E0, then something's gone wrong. Otherwise, I put in the name. So I get the name from the row, the version, the ID, and this GID's quite kinky. because there are 2 bytes in it, and what you have to do is to turn it around 256 times a second, because don't forget we've turned it from 7 to 8 bit, so it's 256 semantics now. And then we store this in our table, and I do this because later on when we come to oh yes, and you see what we do is rather kinky. We find a combo block and we concatenate these values, and basically we create a list. So the CFX up here is what I'm using for the FX combo. Somewhere here, where's it gone? Yeah, there. So I'm saying go get me the one I call FX, okay? And so on the panel I have something here, oops, go away, that I'm calling FX, this thing here. So this thing here is called FX, and generally it will be empty till we generate the list. So then if we click on that drop down, we select an ID, a value rather, from the drop down. And what we do is you say, okay, well, I've made 3 or 4 LCD panels that will update stuff. Go get them. Assuming the last 2 integers, the first 2 are strings. So basically, as long as they're not nil, then use this ID to look up the global FX list which is created from the content. So let's just go and do that, yeah. So you see we're looking at the panel, so we click on request, double click on that request, and it goes into PC mode. And in the background you can see we're pulling in the data. This debugging information will go away. I just needed it because it was hell to work out what on earth is happening. And what it's doing is reading the panel in real time, and it's just pulled out a list of all the available FX. Then it's gone and processed the blocks, and fairly soon it should have finished doing the update to the group. Now I'm hesitating because I think it takes a few minutes to do this, and I need to debug why. I think I've got some delays in it that I don't need anymore. But it should fairly soon have updated and run. See, oh, there we are. Look, see, it's pulled them out. FX blast. So there we are. It would have done it on the fly. So you see, we find that, for example, pedal volume ZD2 has a version 1.40. The FXID is 16 integers, 10 hex, and the group ID is this 28 whatever. So now what should happen if I click here? If I click on here, is it going to work? This is where the demo doesn't work. Okay, it should settle down. I think it's in the middle of doing something rather. Sometimes the debugger kicks in. It doesn't seem to think there's a problem. So it should have produced some output, and then here you see it changed it to say that this Corona try has got version 110, value 491536. So now what we can do, if we look here for star fx star dot shell, one of the things we can do, where is it? FXIDM, so dot slash, oh, hang on, we have to set the pedal value, but we can't do that. Hang on a minute. So what should happen is that we should be able to drop down here and get the values. For some reason, I'm not certain why that's kind of not working. Let's just Control C the debugger and see where it is. Receive the signal interrupt. Let's just continue a second. Is that enough for it to wake up? No, it's gone to sleep. I don't know why. Okay, this is the problem with live demos. I'll come back to that in a minute. So let's just Control C that and quit it. Let it go. Boof. Now we've got rid of that, we're able to use the MIDI directly. So if we scroll up, we can see a series of values coming through. So let's look at this one, for example, here. What we would do, and ultimately we'll do this from controller, FXMID, and it wants, oh, hang on, let's put it into the mode so we can see what's going on. Oh, wrong one. Okay, so at the moment we've got Ztron in there, so let's delete that. /FXM delete 1. No, this won't work because we haven't set. Oh, it did work actually. Oh yes, it did work. I forgot because I built into the code the ability to go and find the I built in the ability to go and find the pedal here. This finds the pedal, so I was doubting myself for a second there. Okay, so now we should be able to do FXID, and we want 3 parameters. The first one is the one. So to put it on the third one, so number 3, the third effect. Then it wants the FXID, which you can see as integer 65. It's been highlighted there, look. And then this was the bit that was a real difficult thing to find. It wants the group ID, which is 1792. And when I do that, poof. No, it's not. So that's oh, it's not on. So let's turn it on. Okay. So what we can do. Hang on. LSFX star on star. Okay. Dot slash FXM on off 3. Did that work? I don't know. Maybe it's just showing weird on my panel. Let's put on, for example, let's scroll up a bit. Now, if you were to use a pedal, you can only have one pedal at a time because there's only one pedal. Let's put this one on. I don't know what this is. There, B1XFour. Okay. So again, we would say up a few arrows. Let's put it on number 1, and we want FXID 224 and GUID 896. That is 896. Woof. And there we go. It's on, and that switch it on. So number 3 isn't on for some reason. Let's switch it on. Interesting. It turns itself off. I wonder why that is. It doesn't like the loop one. So let's go back to the one we put in there, and let's choose a different one. So let's go near the top. Let's put a high EQ on here. So that is 149, and this will all be done from inside the controller. And this is just for debugging. There. But for some reason that's not quite on, and I don't know why. Let's try and turn him on again. Oh, it's on now. So let's just do that. The other one didn't let me do it, so we'll turn that number 3 on again. There we are. It'll work. Ah, 3 1. That's what I didn't do. I didn't put a 1. I didn't turn it on. That's pretty stupid. By default it's off, which is 0. So if I hit it like that, it will turn it off, yeah. And if I hit it with a 1, it turns it on. That makes sense, yeah. Okay, my bad. So you see what's going on there. So let's just now go back to the controller again, see if I can't get this thing to work, because I'm surprised it didn't work. But actually nothing in controller surprises me. So let's just give it one last go on the controller if we can. See what it's doing. So we're booting the thing up. It would be much quicker in reality. We're just using a debugger because crazy things happen. Run. Oops, someone's crashing the place. So we run that. Let's see. It should be in the memory, I think. It'll be in the memory, but that's right. So nothing will happen there because it hasn't. So let's request it in the memory again. So nothing will happen because although it's in the controller memory, there's nothing in the global array. We haven't saved that. So let's just see what it does. Again, I need to debug my debug panel because I've got various delays and things in here which just aren't necessary anymore. So that says no selection there. Look, it's working. So I click there and it gives me the value. There we are. Look, the persistence. I don't know. What did we look at earlier? We looked at. Let's go back into this thing. So now we're using controller. High EQ. What was that? High EQ. So where is high EQ here? I think I saw it a minute ago. High EQ. There we are. And it thinks it's 1.20, 149, 640. And that's what we used, yeah? And we used this one here, 224. But you get the idea, basically. It's doing the thing. So eventually this will be able to send the data through to the pedal. So we can ask the pedal what it is, and then I'll start looking at the values. I already found that I can begin to derive the values there if I want to. And the other thing I can do, I can change the patch, yeah. So if I do that, it's changed the patch, yeah. And so, you know, we got something happening here. It's just not super robust at the minute. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say. And yeah, thank you for watching and goodbye.